three major things that I find really fascinating about the work that you do, and really emphasize about the heart that people know is that the heart has a nervous system. And in the early 80s, it was reclassified as a hormonal gland. And it's also the body's most powerful electrical organ. Why do those discoveries matter for how we understand the heart's influence on the body and even, like we say, the energy that we feel from people?
Well, first of all, I'm going to applaud you for doing your research before our time together today. So you studied that pretty good. Early on, Tim, we were looking, we felt that the heart was doing more than pumping blood. We wanted to know what. So we began to look at it. We found literature sort of scattered out through the research literature, showing that the heart was acting as, independent of the brain and the mind. It was doing physiological things that it shouldn't be doing, independent of what the brain would normally be directing it to do, implying it had an intelligence. So our scientists began to look at that. And what they found is that the heart was communicating with the brain and the rest of the body. And it was doing it in four ways. You've touched on those four ways. First of all, there was a neurological communication. And what they found is that there was a field, relatively unknown, but a real scientific medical field called neurocardiology. And that there had been books written about it, about this nervous system in the heart, and that the nervous system in the heart was the most sophisticated part of the nervous system we have other than the brain and the head. And it was referred to in the books written about it as the little brain in the heart. So this nervous system is sending information to the brain. It's kind of goes, it starts here in the heart, it travels up through the nervous system into the brain. It comes in through the lower centers of the brain, what's called the medulla, but then it goes on. It goes into the mid-level brain where a lot of our emotional processing takes place, and then goes all the way up into the higher perceptual centers of the brain, the neocortex. So you have this information going from the heart back to the brain. Now, the brain does send information to the heart. It's mostly timing information, helping to control the timing of the heartbeat. But as scientists mapped out this communication taking place, they could see clearly that the heart was sending a lot more information to the brain than it was receiving from the brain. So there's this conversation happening neurologically between the heart and the brain, and the heart's doing most of the talking. And that's the first way. The second way you didn't mention, but I'll throw it in there, it's a biophysical communication, it's called. When the heart pumps blood, it basically squeezes and pushes the blood through the veins and arteries, creates a wave of energy that pushes the blood. And that's called a blood pressure wave. Now, the blood pressure wave does travel throughout our entire body. It's how blood gets everywhere, to your earlobe or your big toe or whatever. The blood pressure wave is carrying that blood flow. Blood pressure waves change all the time depending upon how the heart is beating. The rhythmic beating changes in the heart are changing the blood pressure wave. Changes in the blood pressure wave influence other parts of the body. For example, the electrical activity in our brains is synchronized to the blood pressure wave. So when the blood pressure wave changes, electrical activity changes. There's your second way, biophysical. The third way you did mention, one of these things that I like to call today a who knew. Back in 1983, the heart was reclassified as being part of our hormonal system. So now they were seeing it as cardiovascular organ and a hormonal gland. The reason for that is they discovered it produced hormones. One of those was called, for example, oxytocin. And oxytocin is a very regenerative hormone produced in greater amounts when people are in a loving state, like, say, a mother with a young baby, or when you're with your pet or something. You naturally produce more of this regenerative hormone. And they found that the heart was producing a lot of oxytocin, for example. So the heart was producing hormones, and that's a biochemical communication. Today, not just through our research, which is extensive, there's over 400 published research papers on HeartMath. But many researchers have looked into all of this, and so it's clearly understood that these communication pathways exist and are real and a very important part of our physiology. The fourth way is where it really gets interesting. The heart is electrical in nature. It's an electrical organ. When we go to a doctor, the doctor says, I'm going to do your electrocardiogram. What do they just say? Electrocardiogram. They put electrodes on your chest and they're measuring an electrical signal produced by the heart. Well, it turns out that the heart's producing a lot of electricity. It's by far the strongest source of bioelectricity in our bodies, about 40 to 60 times stronger than the second most powerful source of bioelectricity, which is our brain. So it produces enough bioelectricity that it creates a magnetic field. And that field, measured with the most conservative equipment that you can measure magnetic fields with, it's called magnetometers, can be detected about 3 feet, or for those of you that are listening from other countries, about 1 meter outside the body. And that field surrounds us in 360 degrees. So we got this field around us right now, okay? Everybody's producing one. So as we began to look at the field, we found out that the information in the field changed depending upon what we were feeling. If we were feeling anger and frustration or sadness or those kind of feelings, it produced sort of an incoherent frequency pattern in the field. Conversely, if we're experiencing some of the emotional states that have been associated with heart, like we're feeling more appreciation or more care or more love or more kindness, the field would change. It would be a more coherent, ordered energy pattern in the field. Now, why is this important? It's important because, first of all, we're broadcasting that information, those frequencies, to our bodies. Every cell in our body was being bathed in this field. I would rather bathe my cells in something that's coherent rather than incoherent. But we're also communicating it outside the body. We're broadcasting through the magnetic field. So whatever we're feeling is being broadcast. And we sense fields. Everybody does. Every living system produces the field, by the way. And so we are constantly exchanging information at unseen levels. You can be in a conversation anytime with somebody. You can ask them a question. Hey, you want to get together later tonight? They say, yeah, So their words said one thing, but you sense, wait a minute, I don't think it's really a yeah, right? And so you get the feeling there and you're starting to pick up on something else. It could be that it's coming through our exchange of information through the magnetic field. Now, I hope our listeners are not getting too confused here, but I'll take it one more level. That field being measured up to 3 feet outside the body is being measured with very conservative equipment. Scientists believe that field goes much further than 3 feet. It could be really big in terms of how far the field actually goes. And we at HeartMath have been doing non-local research experiments at times. And additionally, when you introduce, we're looking at all this through normal physics right now. But if you introduce the understandings of quantum physics, you get another perspective. I'm don't know that much about quantum physics, but I do know a couple of things. One is that when you enter the world of quantum physics, you remove some of the normal boundaries of time and of space. They're not the same. They go away. So if you were to look at the heart's field through the lens of quantum physics, it could be almost infinite. It could be something that's connecting us to, the universe itself from that perspective. So the heart's field is where the exciting stuff happens for me in this research, because it goes into those type of perspectives and understandings. But there are your 4 ways: biophysical, biochemical, nervous system in the heart, and the energetic field produced by the heart. Now you see a picture of the heart is doing a lot more than pumping blood.